Well, the stated goals of Iraq Veterans Against the War initially were fourfold. So one, immediate withdrawal of forces from Iraq and Afghanistan. So that'd be 1 and 2. Number 2 would be VA benefits, full benefits for returning servicemen and women. Number 3 would be any kind of payment, reparations, or help or aid the people of Iraq and Afghanistan democratically decide they want from the United States. That could be anything and any untold amount. We think that's important, especially trying to project the idea that we have a responsibility to the people's nations that we've destroyed. Not to mention the veterans and so forth, but we think that that's a very important point. Now, what we've shifted into doing, redeveloping our vision, values, and mission as an organization, is trying to combat, understand, and deal with militarism in the 21st century context. So what does militarism look like on the border? What does militarism look like on our streets? What does militarism look like abroad? How does militarism play itself out with the kind of information that was leaked by Manning and Snowden and WikiLeaks, Julian Assange, and others? What does militarism look like in the prison industrial complex when you have 2.5 million Americans who are behind bars? What does militarism look like when you're trying to put in the Keystone XL pipeline, fracking, doing all of these terribly, destructive environmental practices? All of that, I think, for us as members, after the organization being around for now almost 10 years, people are trying to reflect and say, hey, wait a minute, do we want to just keep addressing these things? Oh, Iraq pops up, now it's Libya, now it's Syria. How do we give a bigger context for that? So that way we can get people to understand that these things are going to happen as long as the United States has an empire abroad. As long as we have 1,000 military bases around the world, and we feel as though we run the world, can control shipping lanes, control the import-export of oil products, control the wells of those oil products. So of course going to Iraq was no mistake. We know that it has the second largest untapped oil reserves in the world. Those are all things that a lot of the members, being young, I was 22 when I became involved with the movement. We're trying to learn, trying to educate our members, trying to understand how do we actually build a vibrant enough anti-war movement, broad enough, diverse enough, to where we can combat things like Syria and not feel impotent all the time. We're going to go out there, do our protests, blah, blah, blah. Hopefully, we'll just let them know we're there and we can feel good at the end of the day. Our members are not interested in that. A lot of other members, myself included, already been in positions where we've almost been killed, and it was for BS. So for those of us, I think, who are committed to the movement, trying to look at how do you actually stop Boeing, Lockheed Martin, Raytheon, the U.S. government, the Pentagon, the Department of Defense, how do you stop those entities? I think those of us as anti-war activists have to ask, what are we going to have to sacrifice? Are we going to have to get arrested, get your head beaten? Are people going to be killed? I think if you look at any successful movement throughout history, those things happen. I don't know if we live in those times right now. I think the times dictate we should have a movement that's serious, but I think we should be challenging each other. We can't just tell each other, hey, I feel good, you're here, I'm here, let's all just slap each other on the back, we're cool, we're just glad we're here. Yeah, that's part of it, but the other part of it is I want to win. I want to change the system. You ask what the ultimate goal is. I think it'd be very hard to articulate what the ultimate goal, if I could boil it down to something, would be probably to minimize the kind of death and destruction we're causing, not only human life, but planet and animal life, planetary life as a whole. We should always keep in mind that, as was just reported a month ago, we broke 400 parts per million carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. It's the first time that's happened in 500,000 years. We're living in a context environmentally, socially, economically that maybe had never been seen before. We're living in a global society. Economics are connected. Our entertainment is connected. Our communication systems are connected. Our police forces, intelligence apparatuses, all of this is connected at a level that's never been connected before in the history of human civilization. I think that's a very exciting time to live in, but I also think it's very challenging. How we survive the next 50 years or 100 years is going to determine whether or not the species can survive. I don't know if it gets any more serious than that. But I'm not going to say that I think there's any easy answers to that. I just think that that should be kept in mind when we're thinking about what does that look like? What do those goals, what is the ultimate goal? Well, the ultimate goal for me is to have more fish in the water than you had the year before, to have a lower infant mortality rate, to have more people educated and literate, to to have more people who have access to decent living wage paying jobs, shelter, healthcare, all of these things. I mean, those things to me, yeah, they sound simplistic. Yeah, people have articulated it before, but to me, it seems no different today. People still need those things. You know, people need education, they need food, they need shelter, they need healthcare, and those are, I think, very basic starts. So I'm going backwards and saying what I think the ultimate goal would be, but I think there's very simple places we could start. Abolishing student loan debt, over $1 billion now. Yeah, I'm sorry, over $1 trillion of student loan debt. I mean, we can abolish that immediately. Raising the minimum wage to a living wage, we can do that immediately. Stopping home foreclosures, we could do that immediately. Stopping the student loan interest rates, we could start that immediately. There are a lot of things I think we could do in the short term that would drastically change people's lives. No, they're not the revolutionary actions we want, but I don't think you can have people who are dedicated to the movement who are trying to worry about working 2, 3, 4 different jobs and then expect them to spend another 30 hours a week doing activist work. I think you need people who are stable. I think you need people who are making a decent living, who have access to healthcare and so forth. Those, to me, seem to be the veterans and the activists we have that have been long-term the most stable activists. They're not the ones getting burnt out, having to go away, you know, having to go do other things. Like, there are the people who are able to stay there year in and year out, and they're committed and able to do the work. And know that none of that stuff sounds glamorous, but I just think that's very real. And now I'm probably rambling, so.
You're a great
Who's got to be the next congressman from